live.
We're live. So,
We're do-
big news, Cliff
Wait,
Schecter.
we have
By
to
the way,
say who we are.
oh,
We're amped up. This is Blue Amp. The show is amped up. We are on every Thursday, 2 p.m. or on Wednesdays from the StreamYard place to here and other spots, YouTube and what have you. That's David Schuster. He's the talented one with the Emmys and the stuff.
and
I'm
that's
some
Cliff
asshole.
Schecter, who's the brains behind the operation. So it
I
all
just
works out.
wandered in off the street and they thought there's an extra spot. So here I am. But no, I'm excited to be here, excited to be doing this with David, excited to have Marlon Weems on today because there's a
Yeah.
really important discussion we need to have, and he is the brilliant man to do it. But David's got something to talk about.
Well, first, the latest news, of course, the big news is that Hamas and Israel have at least agreed right now to a ceasefire. And supposedly all of the remaining hostages that Hamas took on October 7th, they're going to be releasing them by Sunday, by Monday. The one thing that really sort of jumped out at me in this, and this is, look, good news for everybody involved. The thing is, it's the same deal that Netanyahu could have had a year ago. He could have had the prisoners back if he was willing to say, okay, I'm not going to demand that Hamas completely get rid of all of their arms. And that was the deal that Biden was pushing, Biden administration saying, and it was in front of them. And Hamas said, we will give back all the hostages, but we're not giving up our arms. Well, that's what Netanyahu is accepting now. And I feel like the only reason he's accepting it now is because he overreached several weeks ago with that attack on Qatar. And the Trump administration wisely used that against Netanyahu and said, look, we don't approve of what you did. Now you owe me. And because you owe me, you're going to agree to this deal. And I feel like that's what's happened.
And that will prove to you our objectivity, folks. We may have it in and think the reason we despise the Trump administration is not because they wear a red jersey and we wear a blue one. It's because they're cruel, corrupt, incompetent idiots, and they've caused a lot of suffering, and they've attacked our democracy. And we'll go through it all at various points. But the key thing here, David just gave them credit that it was smartly done by Trump. Probably not Trump, probably Trump's people, but he appointed somebody who did something. We'll give them credit and credit's due. I'll also add, again, what you're saying about Netanyahu is so true. History bears it out, is that what these right-wingers refuse to do initially where they could get deals, they always end up doing. No, we're never going to pull out of Vietnam until we do 7 years later. And I mean, it's like you always end up doing it, and with a lot more suffering, and as somebody of Jewish extract, I think Netanyahu not only has starved and murdered and attacked innocent Gazans, but has done enormous damage to, your regular everyday Jew, David. But just to Jews in this country, abroad, Israelis, the vast majority of whom are not for him, the way the majority of us are not for Trump, but he finds a way to keep winning the way Trump has, and they find the loopholes to use. And so the damage he's done in the meantime, not to mention the damage he did because these guys who always talk tough, as we know, are anything but, he left the southern border exposed by moving troops to protect these right-wing lunatic, guys who were settling in the West Bank illegally, and left the southern flank open so all sorts of Israeli women and children could be murdered and tortured and raped. And I mean, the fact that he's still in office, first of all, he should be in The Hague, sitting next to Erdogan, Orban, Putin, anybody from Hamas and Hezbollah, Donald Trump. Am I missing anybody? Oh, Xi. I go on. It's a long list, sadly, is what it is. But maybe there will be positives that will come of this. That is what I'm hoping. Again, it's Netanyahu and it's Hamas. I don't trust either of them. They are all bad people. They all kill people rather than make deals and rather than act rational. I'm going to hope for the best. I'm glad it happened. And, maybe Donald Trump will get his Nobel Peace Prize that he's been
the thing is, I have a feeling the killings are going to continue. I mean, to me, the best thing that could come out of this is, okay, the hostages get released, the bodies of those who were killed get released. I guess some Palestinians who may have been innocent, they get released back to Gaza. Great. But Netanyahu is not going to stop a war, I think, because of domestic political pressure and his own feelings, until Hamas is either completely disarmed or until they're vaporized. So I wouldn't be surprised if you look up a week from now, great, all the hostages are back, Palestinians get some of their prisoners back, those families are happy, but the killing, And the war between Hamas and Israel's military, I don't think that's over yet.
No, and you, as we know, it just takes one spark.
Yep.
Somebody, launches a rocket, or somebody has a itchy trigger finger and shoots someone. And I mean, and this has been the history of the area. It's frustrating as hell because after a lot of horrific, killing, it seems to have at least somewhat been figured out. I don't know everything day to day though in the former Yugoslavia, at least a much better degree. It has been figured out with Ireland, in the United Kingdom. Like, I mean, these were ancient and animosities based also on religion and land, and it's just I kind of just feel like throwing them all in a room and just saying, "Fucking stop it! Enough, enough! We've been doing this same dance for however long. You aren't going to get 100% of what you want, and you're not going to get 100% of what you want. That in the end actually is the definition of democracy. Pretty much one of them. Get a lot of what you want and make a deal. Okay, and let's stop this. And just the way Netanyahu could have gotten his deal a year ago, Abbas and Arafat could have had deals 20 years ago,
Yep.
where they could have gotten 90 something percent of what they wanted. They refused them. Arafat even admitted he refused to do it because he was scared for his life. Well, you know what? Then you're in the wrong business. Get out and let somebody who's willing to risk their life. Yes, we know what happened to Sadat. We know what happened to Michael Collins, and we know what happened to Martin Luther King. We can go on through history, often by their own people who are angry. Yitzhak Rabin. I think Israel would be a different place, if Yitzhak Rabin had not been murdered because he was. So I mean, you need to be willing to take that risk, and I don't know. In the end, I hope it works. I hope it works, but we're not going to be as long as Donald Trump is here. Sadly, and needs to be insert himself in the news. We're not going to be a stabilizing force.
Right.
Somebody says one bad thing about his piss cotton candy hair, and you know what's going to happen. He's going to insult them and call them a name or whatever. And I know I'm being a little facetious, but anybody says a slicing that offends him, he doesn't, he doesn't know. He's far from knowing the dance around diplomacy. He's the opposite of what that is,
Yeah, and the
right?
juxtaposition of, and there's Donald Trump wanting a Nobel Peace Prize for what he's done in the Middle East, and yes, credit to his team or whatever for they've been able to do between Israel and Hamas. But at the same time, Donald Trump is wanting a Nobel Peace Prize. His own goons, his troops in Chicago, it turns out, shot a pastor in the head with a pepper ball because he had the temerity, the audacity to raise his arms in protest, and I shot him.
A pastor
I mean,
actually had the temerity to believe in the scripture he talks about. I think we're in for a really interesting period now. I'll say we're going to get Marlon Weems on,
yep.
economic genius, who can talk to us about the mixture of our economics and our politics, which is very important because to me that's the definition of why we're headed into authoritarianism. Is that they've undermined both of those systems, in conjunction. The right has. So our economic system doesn't work for most people, and our political system, people are losing rights. But um, to get back to what you're saying, I think we're entering a really interesting period of time because when you watch history's fluctuations, there's a period of time where the religious left dominated, not the religious
Mm,
right, which was removed from Martin Luther King is an example of that. And right now, a few different things. You see our good friend John Fugelsang, who we had on here to talk about his book. His book is a bestseller, and he comes out, on the New York Times list. He comes out and talks about what Jesus really said, right? And how these no abortion or gay marriage mentioned in there. Did mention a lot about letting people off from debt and taking care of the stranger. We've got James Tallarico running in Texas unabashedly using the language like that, using that kind of language, that his progressive version, of his theological beliefs. Andy Bashir has been doing that for a while in Kentucky. Um, and I feel like I'm missing something. I just saw someone else also having a similar conversation recently. I'm really interested to see the direction some of that goes because I do think that maybe we're witnessing. Oh well, yeah, I forgot somebody. Who could it be? Oh, the Pope. Right, he's not that important. Who I've never heard any Catholic ordained anything come out and say you can't be pro-life if you believe in the death penalty or you believe in harming immigrants.
mhm.
It is a holistic concept, life, and you don't get to use that. That's huge.
Yeah.
Hi, Andy Nelson, who's a friend of mine from here. Thank you for being here. And I saw Lefty Gramps in there, and should say hi to him and others from our show. We could do some more of that in a second. But yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, when you look at the Pope, and I mean, these are not obviously the Pope is as major a figure as it gets, but somebody running in for the Senate in the second biggest state in the country, in James Tallarico. What John's book is doing. I don't. I mean, again, I do. I feel like maybe there will be an awakening of the religious left that can tell the truth about what Jesus said. And if you want to claim that you're a Christian and you believe in that, well, then you're going to have to act like it. It'll be interesting. Let's talk about economics. And to not get too conspiratorial, the many theories out there that Donald Trump is purposely destroying our economy, because it's kind of hard to believe anybody could be that stupid as to be doing everything combined that he's doing. And on top of that, we're looking at the fact that while he's doing all of that, it actually follows a pattern, sadly, that Putin took in Russia. We'll see what Marlon has to say.
And while Marlon's getting connected here, just a little bit background on the news, of course, is that we just had a jobs report that suggested from ADP, private sector employees only, because the Bureau of Labor Statistics can't do an official report, that we lost jobs for the second straight month. So the job market is contracting. There's all sorts of theories about a bubble, a lot of anxieties about the markets. But
Marlon
welcome
Weems.
Aboard! Woohoo!
Look at this guy.
Hello there.
Let me start. I want to say quickly, first, you all need to know Marlon Weems, one of the most brilliant economic and political minds out there. No, I've read your writing.
About the same guy?
We are. You started the as I said to people, you started you founded the first Black-owned financial services firm in Arkansas, and I'm going to guess in Arkansas when you did, there probably were a couple people that weren't happy about it and trying to block you, because sadly that is our history. You've brilliantly, in what I would say when I've read it, tied together economics and politics, which is why you're so perfect right now, because it's a lot of what we've been talking about here is the assault by billionaires, both on our democracy and our economic system, that are intertwined for their own benefit. I wanted to say, I heard that you're a big fan of David Schuster's. I am too. That was told to me through the grapevine. I always feel,
if I'm not mistaken, we've kind of got an Arkansas connection, do we not?
We sure do. So I was in Little Rock 94 to 96. I was a local street reporter for the ABC affiliate. And you're originally from Arkansas? Or
I am. Little Rock, Arkansas.
Wow.
Graduated from Pine Bluff High School.
No kidding. Wow.
And there was 94 to 96, David. There was nobody from there that was important, and nothing was going on down there. So nothing there.
Well, Marlon, it is an honor to be on with you, and congratulations on all the remarkable,
I really appreciate you guys.
Remarkable work you've done.
Oh my God!
Marlon, let's talk about the economy. Do you believe that? I mean, whether it's the tariffs, the inconsistency, the instability, do you think this is deliberate by Donald Trump? But putting aside whether it's deliberate or not, what's the impact as you see it?
Well, if instituting global tariffs when everybody's telling you it's going to fuck up the economy is willful, then yeah. I mean, I mean, the way I see it, there has to be some sort of understanding of these guys are not idiots. I mean, Trump is, yeah. Howard Lutnick, who, full disclosure, I used to run a trading desk that was the company I worked for was in partnership with Cantor Fitzgerald, which is where Howard Lutnick was the CEO. So I kind of have interacted with him occasionally over the years. Nobody can believe this is the same guy. I mean, the guys I know that used to work for me can't believe it. There has to be at the root of it some understanding that it's going to cause chaos, because that's what Trump's all about, right? I was looking the other day, and to me, the irony of it all, David, Cliff, is farmers, because this happened before,
right?
In Trump 2.0 or 1.0, almost identically, where he gets into a tariff war with China. China retaliates and says, you know what? We won't buy soybeans from you. We'll buy them. At that time, it was Brazil. Farmers crater, the whole industry almost goes under. And then what does he do? He takes the tariff money, the money he's raised by hurting the farmers, and uses it to bail out the farmers that he has just
destroy, right? Isn't the whole theory of higher order beings, Homo sapiens, that trial and error is supposed to work? Like, ow, I stuck my hand in the fire. I
The
won't do
hot
that again.
the hot
Uh,
stove theory.
yes, Donald Trump doesn't. That doesn't. Is it possible that a Neanderthal slipped through somewhere, or I don't know. I'm just theorizing here.
Look, I can't explain it. I have thought about it, and have I can't give you a good reason why it is that you get guys like Howard Ludnick, not to pick on him, but he says a lot of dumb
Yeah,
shit. He says he learned tariffs from Trump. The guy used to run an investment firm.
Mm.
He
yeah.
didn't need to learn tariffs from Trump.
No,
So I
it
can't
almost is
see
like
the
he's saying that to
calculus
kiss his
behind
ass because he feels like he has to because we're in this cult of personality.
personality. Well, there's another thing about the tariffs that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. So Bissett, who's the Secretary of the Treasury, I heard him say more than once that the money from the tariffs was going to offset the giant hole that the big, whatever you want to call it, bill blew in the economy, or in the deficit, rather. Well, if you're using the money from the tariffs to pay the farmers, you're not really, I mean, it was supposed to be used to reduce the deficit, right? And it's not even enough, but that was the story, that it was going to
Right.
offset, some of this big increase to the deficit. And so I just think they're just doing a lot of shit because they can. There's not a whole lot of economic sense behind it.
Is there any sense, and Cliff has talked about this before, about you create enough chaos, you ruin the economy so that then Trump and his other billionaire friends can sweep in and buy things on the cheap?
Isn't that what's happening?
Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
can I throw it out there just a few of the combined things because you're smarter than I am at this, Marlon. So I mean, honestly, you are. You're an expert. As I
I'm
joked
gonna have to
in,
get my wife on here to just listen to
just
that.
listen to
Yeah.
all this. I know. Hey, listen. As I joked, I should get my wife on here because she likes to joke. She's always like, "Look at everybody that Cliff worked for." And right out of college, I worked for Lehman Brothers, and within a decade, they were gone. So I made a joke about that. I put it out there whether I'd ask you if I was
I
responsible for
saw
that.
that.
Low
You know
level
what?
stockbroker when I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So help me learn about markets. It wasn't, but yeah, I don't.
So
Did I? But go ahead. Go ahead.
no, just to kind of jump on that premise, I do think, and I'm certainly not an expert on authoritarianism, but unfortunately, we're all getting to be experts on it. I- If you keep the populace where they're always worried about something, one day if you live in a big city, am I going to get picked up by ICE? Can I buy a house? Can I pay my car note? Oh shit, my insurance is getting ready to go up. So all of these things I think just sort of play into one another.
Right.
And when you've got some, fairly unintelligent people running the economy, I mean, this is what you get.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I mean, again, and I'll just lay a couple of the facts out there. And again, you will understand better the interrelationship, but I think I understand enough of it to talk about it. Hopefully, semi-intelligently. You've got, as we talked about, we've got the tariffs, which make it so that our products don't get bought. Our farmers are in trouble. We've got all sorts of other manufacturers in trouble, folks like that, right? So you start off with that, and they retaliate, and they're not stupid. They make sure, like the Chinese are like, oh, okay, soybeans in all of the red states that have farms will hurt Trump's people. But then you add in deportation, which ends up leading to farms and cattle ranches and real estate sites and hotels and places losing their workforce because either they're deported, and I'm not talking about from a human standpoint now. From a human standpoint, it's disgusting, but I'm just talking from an economic standpoint. They're either deported or they're scared to go into work. So you've got labor shortages at these places. They can't get people to do the work, they're going to have to pay more money to get anybody to do anything, and many of them are going out of business. You add on top of that the full faith and credit of the United States, which is I don't know if there's any faith or credit anymore. You blow a hole in making our debt much bigger. You also show instability from January 6th through every stupid proclamation Trump issues about I may just bomb you or I may just and people lose faith, hurts our credit rating, hurts the dollar. So the dollar, is not as strong. And I'm trying to think of a few of the other factors. I mean, shutting down the government, certainly firing massive numbers of government workers, people who were, putting money into the economy, now do not have money to spend. I mean, it seems to me that it feels like it almost has to be purposeful. It's so stupid, all of it together. But again, I could be wrong, and I'd be happy to hear I'm wrong.
So okay, let's just separate it out. Okay, let's just talk about what's going on with jobs. Um, I think I'm pretty close. A third of the construction workers were undocumented.
Mhm.
So you get rid of those guys. Well, what does that hurt? One of the reasons that housing is so expensive is that we don't have enough houses. So you're literally getting rid of the guys who help. I mean, I live on an island in North Carolina. It's kind of a vacation resort community. Lots of houses post COVID getting built. Almost nothing now.
Mm.
I mean, you would see almost exclusively the workers, that were doing the construction stuff. Would you could tell they were definitely Latino. Now, who's to say whether they were undocumented or not? But I can tell you this: I'm not seeing them now.
And at this
You know,
point, they've grabbed some people that are citizens. So even if you are documented, even if you're
no, it
just
doesn't
here,
matter.
you're here legally, but you're not a citizen, or even if you're a citizen, I would think if I were Latino, I would be scared to show up somewhere like
Let
that.
me tell you something. I've got a son that still lives in Arkansas. I don't know why, but but he's in an industry where I mean he's a welder, hangs sheetrock, this kind of thing. And I told him, dude, watch watch your back because just because you're black and American and etc., that doesn't mean you can't get snatched up, you know.
Mm.
Um, but just to kind of pull that thread a little bit more, another thing, and this is where the absence of BLS data, Bureau of Labor Statistics, right? So today we were supposed to get the producer price index. Now that's the sort of the measure of inflation on the wholesale level. What companies are paying. Well, we don't know, right? I mean, we can guess, and there's certainly maybe some, you get guys like Goldman and so forth. They got their own guys. They're probably pulling their own data, but that's not the same
Right.
thing. Nobody's got that wide reach that the BLS had. Um, okay, the Doge folks that took the Doge buy-offs. Remember that way back
Yep.
when? Well, those contracts are coming up this month. So I think it's like 150,000 people took the Doge buyouts. They've been on the government, note for, ever since getting a paycheck. That stops this month. I'm not sure what date, probably the 15th, maybe the 30th, whenever it is. That's some more unemployed folks that,
Yep.
we aren't really accounting for. Um, there's,
And
there's one last thing. There's what's called a Challenger jobs report, and that just happens to be the guy's last name. For September, I'll put it this way, just to be brief, we're starting to get pandemic level
Mm.
numbers in terms of layoffs. I mean, I think, and
And it's
you guys can check me. I
self-sabotage,
think
right?
we
I
just,
mean, complete self-sabotage. None of
oh
this
yeah,
was.
yeah. These are companies just saying, well, uncertainty, man. You
Yeah.
just can't plan. So
and
yeah,
the
it makes us all nervous, but it's making companies nervous too.
And when we all
So
get nervous, I mean, when consumer confidence plummets, as it has, and when more Americans than ever before think the economy's headed in the wrong direction, that the American dream is gone, that itself has a huge dampening effect on the economy, right? Because consumers don't go out and buy things when they're anxious or nervous about the world around them.
let me tell you, man, I really would like to buy a new car right now, um, particularly an EV, because this administration doesn't believe in climate change. So this would be a good time to buy an EV before the end of the year just to get that subsidy, right? But the car I got is like a month from being paid off. You know what? I ain't buying a new car because you just
Right.
can't really plan. You don't know what these guys are going to pull out of the hat. I mean, look, this is kind of off topic, but you got Stephen Miller out there shouting plenary authority.
And then his
Maybe I
brain
should be
breaks
buying a
down.
passport instead of a car, right?
Right. I was going to say, right. Like, I feel like I should, for everybody, and I assume we've got some very smart people. I'm sure a lot of people know what it means, but I almost feel like we need to put a definition of what that means out there because I don't know if everybody understood why his brain purposely malfunctioned at that point. Because I'm sure somebody was saying into his earpiece, "Shut the hell up! You're
You
giving the game."
dumbass. What are you?
Yes.
Stop.
I mean, no, he doesn't have plenary authority, complete and utter control of the troops. No congressional input, none of that none of that silly stuff. Yeah, I know. Trust me, we all have the passport thoughts.
Well, but I mean, it all is of a piece with. If you could describe this moment in one word, it's just uncertainty.
Mm.
Markets don't like uncertainty. Corporations don't like uncertainty. I sure as hell don't like it. And so nobody can plan. Nobody knows what comes next. And everything I've ever read about, how a totalitarian regime gets off the ground, this is how it starts
Yeah,
with just making it where we're all, just our footing is, insecure, right?
right. Well, yeah, they're going beyond things we've ever seen, and we're sort of in shock, and they're still
Well, the big
acting.
shock is that we all thought, some of the stuff we thought were laws were really just kind of gentlemen's agreements, I guess. And and a lot of the things that we knew were laws, they don't give a shit about.
That's right.
So
They don't enforce them. Yeah,
Marlon, I heard Ty Cobb, a former lawyer for Donald Trump, say the other night that it's going to take something like 10 years to fix what Donald Trump has done. And I think he was talking about in the context of the Constitution and the courts and constitutional rights. In terms of the economy and all the uncertainty that Donald Trump has created, how long will it take to fix that damage once Donald Trump and his crowd are somehow gone?
economies tend to be pretty resilient and I mean, knock on wood, nothing he's done. Yeah, I was still working on Wall Street during the financial crisis. And I thought that I don't even know how we ever can bounce back from this, but we did. So I hope that nothing he's done has risen to the point yet of just causing a complete global collapse. But he sure fucked up our stuff. So
yeah,
nobody trusts America anymore because let's face it, these tariffs that he's putting on pretty much the free world, right? Most of this stuff, most of these countries, we already had agreements with. So how
right,
do you get that back when if I am little Vietnam, I know that depending on who the next guy is, if there is a next guy, whatever deal I've got now might not be the deal.
right. Why would
Okay.
you invest your money,
Yeah.
take a
So why
chance
would you
somewhere,
even do
make a
that?
deal? I mean, and the problem is that we showed that we could go through it once and be dumb enough to ask for more of it again. So if you're another country looking at us, right? If you're a big
I mean, we're
corporation,
just not a reliable partner right now.
no, no, who would trust us to be like, really that shit again?
Yeah,
Like
we're the bad
that
girlfriend that you broke up with, and damn it, you went back with them again.
that's right. I
So
mean, the guy told us to inject bleach and stared directly into a fucking eclipse and we reelected him. I mean, I don't really know what else to do at that point, honestly.
so
Like,
you know what? On the subject of tariffs, here's sort of the wild card. For all the damage that's been done, for all the money the government's taken in, there's still some cases working through the courts. They may have to pay all that money back.
Mm.
So just kind of stew on that for a second and then think about this. All the companies that collect or that paid the tariffs are going to have to now go through the expense of figuring out how to get there because they're going to have to claim the money in some way. They're going to have to hire accounting firms. They've already booked it on their financials. How do you unwind all of that?
what a mess, honestly. Um, yeah,
I'm
I don't
sorry to
know.
be such a downer, but
Well,
No,
let's keep it going. I mean, there's a lot
yeah,
of people who are down about, who feel like we're in a housing bubble now, and that's the next bubble to burst. Where do you come down on that?
yeah, But I think I think it's even worse because
Okay.
the other day my wife, who
I
bless
think
her
it's even
heart,
worse.
she has to bear me sitting up with 7 o'clock whatever in the morning with Bloomberg television on and all this stock Bitcoin shit flying around. Okay, she asked me the other day, well, if the economy's bad, how come the stock market keeps going up?
Mm.
Well, again, back to that tax bill that we're not going to call beautiful because it ain't. There's a
I can think of some
provision.
other B words for it,
Yeah,
but not beautiful.
not
Hmm.
suitable even for this.
Yeah, I won't use them. Go ahead.
So essentially, short version is there's something built into the where they made some changes in how companies can recognize depreciation and that kind of thing. So it allows them to sort of move it up, and it creates it juices up the cash flow that normally might stretch out over years. Now it's there now. They can't really claim it in or show it in earnings, but the markets know that it's there. And so it's making not synthetically the price of these stocks more than what they normally would be. And then you got really what they call the Magnificent Seven. So that's Amazon, Google, Apple, the tech
In
guys.
other words, what you mean is the monopolies.
Yeah, in a word. So those guys have an outsized weighting in these indexes. So you put those two things together and throw AI in on top of it because everybody think that's the bubble that I'm worried about is everybody and their brother all of a sudden now, I opened up some app today and they thrown AI in there and I don't need that. But
No.
everybody's on that train. So you can't have stock market going through the roof and gold going through the roof because gold is where people go when they're scared. That's an inflation hit.
Right. That's the one to protect
Stock
yourself
market.
against.
So
Yeah.
these are incongruent things. So my guess, if I had to, is that the stock market, something's going to happen where it just blows out. What they call a blow off top, and then look out.
You mean blows off on the top side
On the top side,
and
and
then
then
goes.
just
Yeah, because you look
like the roof blowing off of a house.
right. I mean, and I've worried about this. I'm not some limousine riding multi-gazillionaire investor here, but we've got money in the market, and I've seen thinking I figured I'd see it going down, and I keep seeing it going up, and I'm just like it's like, okay, I think I need to get it out of there soon,
It's just a
and
really
somewhere
weird
safer
time.
because
It really is.
right. I don't trust it. I don't
Well,
trust it at all.
toss this into the mix. So you've got what's going on with stable coins, right? The whole cryptocurrency bills that just got passed, right? So stable coins, what makes them stable is that they're backed by either dollars in our case or some what they call a dollar equivalent, almost money. So how when you put your money in a money market account and it's maybe that money gets invested in really short-term treasuries, something like that. So that's kind of the way these stablecoin things work, right? So on top of everything we're talking about, as these stable coins become more um, of a reality, you're going to see those companies buying the shit out of short-term bonds.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't even know what that means, but I'm just sort of putting it out there. I haven't figured out if it's. I don't think it's good. I think it's going to probably, at least with this crew, cause them to want to front load all of their debt or as much as they can. So anyway, maybe I'll write something about that just to explain it a little bit. But it's all these different little weird things that I kind of spend time thinking about and, making everybody in my house mad because I randomly curse and and say shit.
That's me with the political. That's me with the political stuff. Dad,
Well,
can you just shut up and can we talk a little bit more about the movie we just watched or the
And Cliff, you and I were, I think, Cliff, you and I were talking about this a couple of months ago that one of Donald Trump's, I don't know, Federal Housing Authority folks, I can't remember which one it is, but they put in this new policy that said when people are having their assets evaluated for what is your net worth, that now you have to include their crypto holdings, which are, as
Mhm.
you point out, really unstable. And the problem with that is when you're including somebody's crypto holdings and it's so unstable, and then you're trying to make a bet as to whether this person can afford to buy this particular property or not, you start to, I suppose, get into some of the same faults that we had 2007, 2008 in terms of bundling all these mortgage-backed securities that were not worth the paper they were on.
I would just go back to the Middle Ages and maybe accept a couple chickens or something. Like maybe trade that way. Something of value
In my
still.
neighborhood, then we got a few millionaires if it's chickens you're
Well,
talking.
that's what I'm talking about. You know they're going to produce eggs. You're all good there. You have a great breakfast set up, brunch forever. I would trust that more than I'd trust Bitcoin. I'm sorry. I mean, again, you can, and I'd love to hear it from you because I've looked at it all as a damn scam from the beginning
Man,
that I haven't
you know,
trusted.
it's hard because I've been saying that for a long time as it's been going through the roof, and I'm like, I was telling somebody the other day I had like I don't know $100 worth of Bitcoin I bought 5 years ago to show my kids something, and at some point it was during COVID when we're all sitting around looking for shit to do, I guess. Oh well, I mean, I don't see the intrinsic value of it.
That's what I've never understood. Like
I just don't. I can make the argument for a stable coin because there's something behind it, right?
right,
But
but that's what I've never gotten.
Bitcoin,
Right.
I just don't understand it, and I try not to mess around with stuff I don't understand.
So if you don't understand it, that makes me feel better because I've always looked at it and said, like,
What
again,
is it? What
I'm not an
exactly?
economic genius, but I do possess common sense. Again, we can question whether the full faith and credit of the United States means anything anymore.
Yeah.
But for a long time, that's what backed the dollar. That made sense. You trust the United Kingdom. You understand why the pound is
Well,
strong.
the
You know,
country is behind it, at least,
right. That's what
right?
I'm saying. You trust certain countries. Like I wouldn't. There's countries out there that I wouldn't trust. Let's say Hungarian currency because I don't know what the fuck Orban's going to do from day to day because he's another lunatic. But I figured we had things that have backing. I've just never understood Bitcoin because to me it
Man,
just
believe
seems like
me,
it's only worth whatever the other person thinks it's worth. There's nothing backing it.
I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I got hired to write a report on blockchain, which is the sort of foundation, like the infrastructure that these cryptocurrencies sit on. And there are a lot of different use cases. But just in terms of writing that, I necessarily just had to dig into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and I talked to a lot of people. I understand blockchain. I understand what you can do with that. I
Yep.
mean, that's th- and the reason they hired me was because I'd written a white paper some years earlier about how you could use blockchain, to make securities transactions more efficient and more secure, that kind of thing. So I got that. I cannot tell you. Bitcoin, I just don't know. I mean, give me a tulip bulb or something. I mean, at least I got a flower.
Right. Right. Here's an idea. If we like Donald Trump wants to put his face on coins, if we put his face on Bitcoin,
It
will
will
that
lose
make
its
it?
value
As I say, would that make
exponentially.
it more stable or less stable? Because inherently, I think anything Donald Trump's visage gets near becomes less stable. Is that a scientific principle, like a chemistry principle, or something of that nature?
I think it's an experiential principle. We experienced this shit.
Yes, you live through it
Everything the
enough,
guy touches, something bad happens.
right? You're like that guy's fucking
Except
nuts.
except for, right, the really wealthy, the billionaires. And this, I think, gets to something that we were talking about with a guest yesterday. And that is, I think, one of the great messages to bring this back to politics
And
is that
it's important to say, David, he's a congressman, Greg Landsman. So
Greg Lansman,
these are
Congressman,
Democrats. We need to share these
and his
messages. Go
brilliant
ahead.
message, and he represents Cincinnati, and he and Cliff are, close friends. As he's pointing out, the part of the messaging is that Trump and the Republicans are only helping the billionaire class. The billionaires are getting even wealthier, and it's coming on the backs of everybody else. And I think there's a political message there, but I guess I'm curious to you, putting aside the political message, what is the economic impact on a society when you continue to widen the wealth gap, when the wealthiest billionaires get richer and richer and the rest of the country is stagnant?
It doesn't end well.
I think
So
there's a
I
French
mean, I'm not kidding.
Revolution.
I mean, look, okay, so um, Citi, Citigroup, Citibank, I forget. This is several years ago, back when I was still running a trading desk. They put out a report, and this is it's pretty infamous. They put out a series of these weren't like full reports like you get on a particular stock. These are what they call notes, right? And the whole the thesis, they had this little group of brainiacs that thought it would be a good idea to show their ultra high net worth clients how to take advantage of income inequality.
Oh, that's nice.
Somebody thought that was a good idea. And I actually have the report somewhere on the cloud. And the interesting thing was, whenever you do something like this, you always, whatever it is you're examining, you look at, okay, so what are the risk factors that could make this not work? And I always remember the one, they talked about markets and all this stuff, but then they said, of course, and they didn't say unfortunately, so I'm paraphrasing. They said, you know, we still have one person, one vote. And at some point, one of the things that makes this train keep working is the concept or the thought among the masses that they too can be rich. And that's why they
Yes.
put up with this shit. They don't want to get rid of the billionaires because they have this idea that, if I just kind of keep doing what I'm doing or win a lottery or whatever it might be, I've got a chance to be almost that rich. But at some point, they're going to figure out the game and they may want to take this shit from us. I mean,
Well, that's right. But I mean, that's what again,
and that's where
negative
we are
jobs
right now.
reports.
People are starting to go, hang
Right.
on a second.
Inflation up.
You've already got it where I can't afford a car. I can't buy a dozen eggs without, it's either eggs or my utility bill, right? Can't buy a house. Now you're talking about tripling my insurance. Huh. Hang on. When you get me agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, guys, we're close to the apocalypse.
I saw that earlier today too. I was like, this can't be reality.
I
I'm
thought
agreeing.
It was like a deep fake. I
always think of
talking about this stuff.
Yeah, I always like to just sort of throw out two quotes that I think of by two. I'll call them two philosophers, right? You think of one which is Louis Brandeis, Supreme Court Justice,
right,
who said you can either have vast disparities in wealth or you can have democracy. You can't have both.
Can't have both.
And then other great philosopher Chris Rock, who said, if you motherfuckers ever saw the way people like me live, if you ever saw what it looks like when I go to an airport into my private, into the Delta like club and shit, you'd have a revolution tomorrow. And on one level, there's Louis Brandeis on the structural level. On the other level, there's Chris Rock, who's like, a lot of people are learning how the fuck they live now, are seeing how wealthy people, because they're not hiding the Elon Musk's out there with too many pictures, frankly, of him with his shirt off on yachts, and some of them people are like, I can't even, they're cutting my snap and this dude's getting another yacht. I mean, at what point does that become untenable?
There's so many, well, think about this. The guys we're talking about are the reason we can do this. So after I left, the world of, working 70 hours a week, I used to do these white papers, and one of my focus was fintech, financial technology, right? We've democratized so much information. There's a bad outcome. That's why we got so many crazy conspiracy theories floating around, because you used to write that shit down and hand it out, in a leaflet or something. Now you can blast it out to 1 million people. But at the same time, we can put this conversation out to, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people if we do it right, I guess. So that's, I guess the good news, if there is any, is if we amplify the truth and put the knowledge that we're talking about right now out to enough people, maybe it flips the switch and folks start going, wait a minute, do I have to really put up with this shit?
Right. Well, that was the inspiration here. That's why David, I think, put up with me. It's just, we were like, I don't know how he did it. I don't know what, like what accident of history, but this will reach a few 400, 500,000 people.
Wow.
So in the end, will they listen? Probably you more than me because you're smarter and you've got a cooler beard.
I don't know.
But David doesn't have a beard at all. So David's got to really work. At least I'm unshaven. David,
Well,
like
Come
I
on,
don't even
David.
know. I don't even know if I could grow one, but that's a whole other story. But to your point about, I mean, the number of people out there who have simply given up. I think I saw a poll the other day, a CBS News YouGov poll that found like a record number of people say that the American dream is gone or that it never existed. Something like 2 out of 3. It's like the worst number that the poll has ever found. And I keep wondering, I guess, Cliff, this is a political question for you. At what point do these numbers become a tipping point? I mean, yes, for all the work that we do on Substack and being able to talk to Marlon and other guests, that's what sort of gives me hope that there is a brighter future. But for the 2 out of 3 Americans who say there is no bright future, at what point does that figure become a tipping point?
well,
We got to be getting close.
it's much more dangerous here. We start with there's twice as many guns out there as there are people.
Yeah.
We have made a decision, and when I say me, because I hate it when people aren't clear. The fucking Republican Party made a decision because, again, I'm going to always point out this figure after Newtown on universal background checks. 97% of Democrats voted for it, and 3% of Democrats voted against it. And as if they were trying to almost give you the perfect comparison, 97% of Republicans voted against it, and 3% of the Republicans voted for it. So right away, you've got people out there who are able to go to flea markets online and you get the kind of weaponry that can make it so they have to figure out who the victim is by their DNA.
Yeah.
All right. You add into that, and this happened in this big piece of shit bill. Sorry, I'm just going to call it that. They massively added already to cuts in mental health. And I want to be clear, I'm not stigmatizing. Most people with mental health, any mental health challenge, are completely nonviolent. But for the few percent out there that are violently mentally ill, they even passed an executive order that people that were so mentally ill that they could not handle their own social security checks and that kind of stuff, they could get guns too. This is what Trump did. So that's 2. And then 3, when you're talking about the democratization of information, I think this is great what we're able to do. But we're just about the only democracy that has refused to grapple at all with the vast amount of disinformation out there. The United Kingdom has libel and slander and other laws and threatening violence that they enforce online. You're not allowed to show Nazi symbols in Germany. These are places that still have free speech and are still democracies. We're the only one that said, no, it's okay, Elon. Let all the Nazis back on there. Let them hide behind fake, credentials. They may not even be people for all we know. And share the most inciting, evil shit. And when you put mental health and disinformation and guns together, and now you're adding in people that are economically desperate, that's scary. And so I'm saying, can I tell you exactly where that tipping point is? I can't, but I can say, and I've said this again and again, this is our FDR moment, and we had better grab it because the way he needed to keep us from the brink. You had Stalinism, you had fascism, you had these authoritarian ideologies that they're mass murdering people, and FDR was able to get enough done, and we were able to win by a big enough margin. We've got some incredible candidates, especially running for the Senate out there right now, that if we're lucky enough, Sherrod Brown here in Ohio, McMorrow in Michigan, these are progressives, right? Tallarico from a religious perspective in Texas, Plattner, the oyster farmer in Maine, who speak like real humans. They're not wealthy, If we can get people like that who can give us a moment where we seriously restructure our economy, we're willing to go. There's some things we need to reform, but there's a lot of else that we just need to add to, like FDR did.
Sure.
We need new institutions because the previous ones have not worked. And if we're up to that challenge and we do it, and the Democrats message correctly, I'm talking to you, Hakeem and Chuck, you need to be willing to say what your most aggressive members are saying. Stop with the placating bullshit. Get out there and tell people who Trump is and what we're going to do and why Trump and the billionaires are taking away your SNAP, are taking away your Medicaid. If we do all of that and we have that kind of an election, I do believe we can prevent what we're talking about. If we do not, and we let that anger, because we don't do enough, shift to the right, even more of it, God help us. is what I have to say. Da, 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 da. I don't know what else to do. So I'm sorry. That was the, but I mean, we have a choice to make, and we need to decide to make it and not try to do things in a half-assed way. This needs to be a moment in American
One of the
history.
things I would add to that, Cliff, and I'd like to hear what you guys think. Um, I'm the anomaly, right? The black progressive ex Wall Street trader. Go find another one, right? But I've been in that bubble, and now North Carolina isn't ruby red, but it's red enough for me. What frustrates the hell out of me is the idea, and this is a Democratic leadership thing, that if we could just, get these Republicans to come back, those,
Well,
and I'm like, how about fuck those guys and go get the 250 million people who didn't vote at
Yeah.
all? How about we do that?
Motivate
Am I
them to go
stupid, or
out.
is that?
Yeah.
I'm,
No, you
I
are.
mean, I know a lot of, I've got a son that's in college. I've got a daughter that just finished. So everything you're talking about in terms of just not total despair, but I've got a daughter. She's got a college degree. She's very talented. She's an artist. Right now she's moved back home.
Right.
And so we have these conversations. Can't buy a house. Don't know when she ever would be able to. Can't rent an apartment by herself. And she's making good money, certain being a server. But I'm just saying, for us, it was different. And so I wrote something a couple of years ago, and I always remember the title because I think about it whenever we have these kind of conversations. And I think it's repealing the last half of the 20th century. I mean, that's kind of what we're experiencing, right? I mean, Republicans are
Economically.
basically
Yeah.
unwinding every bit of progress that's
Well,
been
because
made.
at the 30s to the 80s, we created the strongest middle class in the history of the world.
And
I
it's
mean,
just not there now.
the
And
things that we
so,
did, and you see that evidence everybody does in their families. You may not as much because, of course, we discriminated. We were assholes, and we
hmm,
discriminated against plenty
well,
of people too. But I've got a member of upper generation of my family who got the GI Bill, and that allowed him to get a PhD, and he became a finance professor, and that's a story in the family, and there are stories like that. But my family, we never would have probably been able to afford. I grew up in Manhattan, but we had rent control, and they're getting rid of as much rent control as they can because God forbid, you not be a sheik or an oligarch and live in Manhattan. I mean, we're undoing, as you just said. I'm really just talking too much and belaboring what you said, which is you're absolutely right. Everything that we had put in place, one of the big ones to me. I'm interested in your take on this. Is until 1982, and I see the big divide coming with Reagan, because the economic hocus pocus or voodoo economics, if you will, that was put in place during that time based on all sorts of bullshit beliefs that were not borne out by any science or anything. To me, one of the worst things that we did is when we legalized what was considered stock manipulation until 1982, buying back shares of your own company. I mean, if you think about it, it's the stupidest thing. It makes no sense. You would have invested that in the past, maybe in your machinery or your workers. No, let's make the shareholders happy. And oh, by the way, I get paid in stock options. So I think I'm just going to go and buy a big chunk of the stock. I mean, that's insane to me that that's illegal.
so before I answer, full disclosure, I I have
Okay,
sinned
what stock did
against
you
you.
buy back? I'm just kidding. Oh,
So when I, in my former life, I had occasion to manage a number of share repurchases. That's the fancy way to say stock buybacks,
you know
right?
what? But let me say to you, because
And
I want to be clear that I'm not criticizing you. You did what
man,
was you
I
did what
take
was
no.
legal. You did what was
It's
allowed.
not like I never felt like I was doing anything wrong and it paid
Well,
well.
you
So,
shouldn't have because it was allowed. It's what I'm saying. It's our faults for letting that happen. If you're just doing a strategy that makes sense.
but okay, so the answer to your question, though, and I'll give you a prime example of how that goes wrong. I mean, my clients, guys like Microsoft and Walmart, they've got more money than they know what to do with. They could certainly do that and their people well.
Okay.
So buybacks aren't keeping them from paying the little 70-year-old lady that's greeting me when I walk in the door a living wage, right?
Fair enough.
Okay. On the other hand, look at the airline industry. When, when the wheels fell off during COVID, they were the first guys in line wanting a bailout, right? But at the same time, they had not paid. They invested nothing in their infrastructure. They had no rainy day money, and yet they were paying just exorbitant
Oh yeah.
salaries and 30 million a year to the CEO, this kind of thing. So it really incentivizes in a really perverse way for CEOs to be more focused on performance of the stock, that's why you do a buyback, is to keep the
Oh yeah.
stock from going down, right?
Right.
Well,
And there's some rules behind it. You can't just overtly do it. But if I'm in the market and I'm buying 5 million shares of Microsoft a day, the stock is going to have a hard time going down,
Yeah.
you know?
and,
So,
and I was going to say,
so
to bring it back to the politics of all this, the guy who had one of the best proposals for getting rid of stock buybacks about 8 to 10 years ago was a Florida senator named Marco Rubio. I mean, he was the guy who recognized this and said, hey, this is bad for our economy. This is bad for our companies. This is bad for our people. Let's get rid of certain stock buybacks. And when I think about where our political future is going now, I don't know whether that Marco Rubio still exists,
let me
if
tell
he
you,
were to, or whether he would say, forget about all that stuff. I'm
if
a
there
MAGA
is
guy.
ever an example of someone who sold their soul to the
Mhm.
devil,
Yes.
this
He
guy
was a
is
huge
right out
booster
of
of
Memphis,
USAID,
isn't he?
also, like enormous booster of USAID, very pro NATO and pro Ukraine, one of the most outspoken pro Ukraine Republicans. It's like when you bring up Howard Lutnick and people are like, is that the same guy?
Oh, we
There's
talk
so
about it
many
all the
people
time.
around Trump like that where you're like, is this the same human that I used to hear? Because this doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, it's I guess it's funny what a whole lot of money and a whole lot of power will do to
Yeah.
you. You know, I,
That's,
it's these are tough questions, and I don't want to come off like, hey, I'm all for people making a good living and making
Me
money,
too.
but it doesn't have to be done at the expense of somebody else. And that's the
Yes.
part that really, I mean, okay, you're going to cut taxes, but are you seriously talking about taking Medicaid money
mm,
from folks to pay Elon Musk more or give him a bigger tax cut?
Yep. I mean, that's the thing. It's the obscenity of it. It's when's enough. And I mean, I am a capitalist. I believe in well regulated capitalism and social democracy of the Western European model that I think, to me, works the best.
Same.
And so I'm a big believer in markets. I'm a big believer in that kind of, because that is a kind of freedom. You should have the freedom to start your own business. I've started a couple of them. You know, some of them failed, and I didn't ask for a bailout either,
Same.
by the way. But
You're in good company.
right. So you don't. I mean that Republicans try to make it like, oh my God, you want some regulation in the markets? You must be a Marxist. It's like, no, there's a real big happy medium in there somewhere where we don't let you guys do absolutely crazy shit and take risk with our futures, pension funds, and whatever, and then ask for a bailout once you've screwed it up.
So we
Uh,
used to have
yeah,
it was almost like an inside joke on a trading desk, and you hear it especially during the financial crisis, and it's capitalism on the way up, socialism on the way down. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
because I mean, think about it. You got all these big global investment banks that were just raping and pillaging until the bottom fell out, and then suddenly it was like, well, you can't let us go out of business, right? I mean, that's what capitalism demands, but
Right, right. And then it's like, well, I don't like capitalism as much anymore. I'm changing my philosophy. That's when I took out Lehman Brothers. So
hey,
yeah.
Marlon, where can everybody find you? I mean, so many people have loved listening to you and following your writing. Where can we keep up with you?
So my newsletter is the Journeyman, and I guess that would be the journeyman.substack.com, I guess. And it's me occasionally having a meltdown on the economy, but but And what I try to do is just examine what I think is an intersection between politics, race, money, the economy, and how all those things sort of fit together. And that's kind of what I do. And then occasionally I will have just a story out of left. Now I think about it, maybe it's a little bit funny, just so that people aren't suicidal from reading my newsletter.
Yeah.
Well, speaking out of left field, Cliff, I have to say that the most beautiful place I have ever lived in my life was Arkansas. I mean, that state has a lot of strange stuff about it,
It
but
does.
it is so beautiful. It is so beautiful.
It's beautiful country.
I would never question. I've been to Arkansas for all of a few hours, but we had to drive across and check it out because I was in Memphis, I think, and I'm like,
Okay.
let's head over and check it out. I mean, again, I'm sure everything I saw was beautiful. I'm sure it's beautiful. In a way, it's such a shame that it's being despoiled, if you will, by the
It
Tom
really is.
Cottons and the entire Huckabee family going back at least 200 years.
If I could just say this, I wrote something some years ago, and people have a hard time believing this, but Arkansas had a Republican governor, Winthrop Rockefeller, back in the 60s,
Yep.
and he won with something like 80% of the black vote. If that tells you anything about how far Republicans have fallen.
No, right? I mean, there actually were Republican senators who were black, and there were and there
Go
were all
figure.
sorts of people that were moderate and liberal. You know, we used to vote for. I wasn't old enough, but my dad did in New York. Jacob Javits, who was a
Mm.
Republican, who was to the left of like at least half, if not 2/3, of the Democratic Party.
Mhm.
But it just is they've so propagandized their people with their media that they've done that. And again, I want to say before you leave, Marlon, journeyman.substack.com. I wasn't, BSing at the beginning. And I think it is that you bring such a unique perspective because of finance and because you're black, and that obviously a lot of folks were held out of that industry, and you obviously played a serious role. Know what you're talking about. You're interested in politics, and so I didn't know about a lot about you until we were introduced by our friends at our place. I think Lawrence Winterman up there right now is promoting you, and I as I do for this started reading what you're writing. And I'm like, well, now I've got to read more. So I'm very serious when I say, I mean, if you want an interesting perspective, if you want good writing, if you want to learn about finance and actually not be bored, because you can go read a textbook or you can read his stories, which are much more interesting, and you'll learn some things. So I
Thanks
would
so much,
recommend
Cliff.
that.
I appreciate that.
And the other thing I'll add to this, which I love discovering, is that Marlon's also a great guy. You could just tell Marlon, you're a good guy, you're a decent person.
I try.
So you're an expert in your field and you're smart, but you're just a good guy. And we're so glad that you joined us.
Oh my God,
today.
that's so true. Our rule
Thanks
is
so much.
we want to have people on who are the same people on camera as off camera. I'm not going to claim that that's always doable, but at least I think we've been able to accomplish it most of the time. And you seem like exactly that. So wherever you are in North Carolina, if I make my way down there from Cincinnati, Ohio, in occupied territory of Ohio, maybe we'll grab a beer or a coffee or whatever it is that
I'm all for it. Well, let's
your
go
pleasure.
with beer.
That would be my
In this
my goal
environment,
too.
man, alcohol, whenever.
Marlon, thanks
God
again.
bless you.
Hey, thanks so much, folks.
And Cliff,
I
great
appreciate you
show
having me
as
on.
always.
God, I'm lucky enough to a great guest. I mean, a great co-host with me, and then the guests we get are incredible.
Yeah.
So thank you to both of you. There's been I don't even want it to end, but I suppose we have to end at some point. We'll have you back on, Marlon. That I can
I look
promise you.
forward to it.
All right. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. Take care, guys.